Could this recently released star be set to join the Bloodline? But first, there is frustration backstage in AEW. One of the criticisms levied at WWE over the years has been a seeming lack of long-term creative direction across the board, with reports often revealing that plans were changed at the very last minute, and sometimes even during the shows. With that said, since the introduction of Triple H as the head of creative, these issues appear to be a thing of the past. However, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio last night, problems with communications of creative plans are starting to appear in All Elite Wrestling as of late, and Dave would note, if you follow AEW, you know that a lot of stuff is being decided at much later periods than previous. Guys are getting their information on what they're doing later, and decisions are being made later. There's times the day of the show sometimes you don't even know what the plans are. It's almost at times like we used to talk about WWE, which is also very frustrating for talent. A lot of guys have a lot of input on what they're doing, but they don't really know a long-term direction. So they're doing stuff and they're coming up with ideas, but when you don't know exactly a long-term direction, you're kind of coming up with ideas week by week too, but you don't know where the ultimate thing is, and maybe the ultimate thing hasn't been decided. So that's one of the reasons that shows are like the shows are. Just last week, Meltzer would reveal that plans for a Young Bucks AEW tag team title shot were scrapped, despite them winning the #1 contendership match at WrestleDream. However, it seems the situation is still up in the air, another sign of potential lack of direction. And he would add, the last I heard is that they may do Big Bill and Ricky Starks versus the Young Bucks at Full Gear, but that's not official. It was just one of the things that was kind of thrown out there. Interestingly, current AEW coach Jerry Lynn would take to social media to respond to Dave's report, revealing why Tony Khan isn't told the full picture ahead of time, suggesting that this is by design and not through incompetence, and Lynn would post the following on X. Because wrestlers and God knows who else have and continue to leak info to the sheets, podcasts, etc., so Tony tries to keep things confidential. You wouldn't want to know everything before you see a movie. Anyone who leaks info is doing damage to the product and the industry. There's seemingly a whole bunch of wrestlers across the wrestling space that like to leak certain information, and it appears that Khan is taking steps to prevent as much stuff getting out there as possible. Whilst it may be frustrating that some of the talents don't know their plans going forward, ironically this environment has been brought on by those same individuals that are complaining to the dirt sheets about it, and is why we know they're frustrated to begin with. Next up, we have the latest on a major expiring WWE contract. In a recent report, Fightful Select would reveal that there are many WWE talents who have deals that will soon come to an end, some of which who haven't been approached by the company to extend their stay. In a follow-up to this, Fightful would drop another story today that gave an update on the situation of former WWE champion Drew McIntyre, whose deal is set to expire in the coming months. The report notes that whilst they can't confirm if he's been approached to negotiate, McIntyre hasn't yet signed an extension with WWE, this in contrast to recent social media rumors to the contrary. Additionally, it states that Drew's contract will expire before WrestleMania next year, describing him as potentially the first major domino that could fall in the TKO era of re-signing major talent to WWE deals. It's also confirmed that Becky Lynch is another star that has a deal that ends in 2024, a year that is shaping up to be very interesting when it comes to free agency. And next up, a surprise is coming to AEW. Next month at AEW Full Gear, current AEW World Champion MJF will defend his title against Bullet Club Gold's Jay White. Whilst he holds the top belt in All Elite Wrestling, Friedman is also one half of the ROH World Tag Team Champions, alongside the injured Adam Cole, a title that will now be on the line on the same show. Earlier today, AEW would reveal that the Full Gear 0 Hour show will feature a bout for the ROH tag belts, with Colton and Austin Gunn of Bullet Club Gold set to take on MJF and a mystery partner. Much like we saw at AEW All in London, MJF will be required to compete twice in the same night, with this being the second defense of the ROH straps since Adam Cole's injury, this following his handicap win against the Righteous at WrestleDream. Whilst it remains to be seen who will be teaming with the double champ at the pay-per-view, it could well be one of his 3 mystery partners that will be revealed on this week's episode of Dynamite in the 8-man tag match against BCG. And next, 2 more NXT call-ups are expected. On tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, NXT tag team the Creed Brothers are scheduled to compete against the Alpha Academy's Chad Gable and Otis, with this being their first ever match on the main roster outside of appearances on 205 Live and Main Event. This would lead to speculation on if this was set to be a one-off cameo to test the waters, or if it was a full-blown call-up from developmental. Well, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, Julius and Brutus are expected to head to the main roster on a full-time basis, and he would say, "I was told Sunday night that right now, barring any changes, not like it's 100%, but right now they're being called up." Earlier this year in June, the Creeds would be on the losing side of a loser leaves NXT match against the Dyad. However, they would eventually return to the black and gold brand 2 months later, with their reported call-up eventually being scrapped. With that said, it looks like they've now been given the official nod. And next, Vince McMahon's grandson has yet again teased a future in wrestling. Declan McMahon, the son of Shane McMahon, currently finds himself at the Indiana University, where he wears the number 37 jersey for the Hoosier College football team, this whilst he studies a degree in business. Declan has hinted that he could be looking to transition into the squared circle once his college days are behind him, with him being inspired by his appearance alongside his father at WrestleMania 32, which would make him the first of his generation of McMahons to do so. In an interview with Developmentally Speaking earlier today, Declan would discuss who out of his siblings and cousins is most likely to step into the ring, and he would confidently say,
"Probably me. I mean, the story's already written, right? I mean, the rightful heir, the good looking, the one who looks like Vince, right? So I think in the sense that you could play off the WrestleMania 20, right? Like I posted on Twitter, right? You could play that off and to just show that like there's the new generation McMahon has arrived. So I think in that sense I would, but you know, we have such a great family, and you know, we're all so supportive of each other. So I think really any of us could potentially want to do it. You know, I know Aurora, Triple H's oldest daughter, she's always talked about wanting to do it, but in having my dad and my grandpa's ego, you know, I think I'd be the best. So
McMahon would then jokingly be asked if he could be the one to dethrone the tribal chief and current undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns, and he would add,
I've talked to Mr. Reigns a lot. He's such a great guy, but what he's doing right now is incredible. You know, he's really helping out the business, not only just, you know, in the United States, but all over the world, right? It shows that like it doesn't always work the first time, right? Like you have to, sometimes it's a lot of trial and error, right? Like Roman Reigns, when he first won the belt, people hated him. I mean, they were booing him out of the building. But now he's really ascended into one of the all-time elite, and I'm very, very happy for what they've done with him. And he's done a phenomenal job. But if the storyline had it, you know, I wouldn't really mind being the undisputed champion. So that wouldn't be too bad.
As of now, we're still likely a few years away from Declan attempting to enter WWE as an active competitor, although he certainly has the personality and confidence of a McMahon that will no doubt help him along the way. On top of this, he's grown up around key figures of the industry to learn from, and I'm sure having his grandfather as the executive chairman certainly won't hurt his chances. Next up, could this recently released star be set to join the Bloodline? On last night's news video, we would discuss a report from Fightful Select that revealed former MLW World Heavyweight Champion Alex Hammerstone had requested his release from Major League Wrestling, a request that had been denied. However, Alex isn't the only MLW star that was looking to leave the company, as it's now since been revealed that 2 other names have requested their release, a wish that has now been granted. Shortly after the Hammerstone report was released, former MLW World Tag Team Champions Lance Anoa'i, a member of the famous Anoa'i wrestling family, as well as Juicy Finau, his tag team partner, would take to X to reveal that they've received their release from MLW. Whilst Finau isn't part of the Anoa'i wrestling family, which contains Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and the Usos in WWE, the releases would lead to fans wondering if Lance could be WWE bound as to play his role in the ongoing Bloodline angle. In the past, Lance has appeared in WWE, having received several tryouts, as well as working as enhancement talent, with him even being involved in a segment in 2019 where Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre beat him down, only to be saved by Roman Reigns. With that in mind, it seems that WWE may not be an option for the young Samoan after Sean Ross Sapp took to Fightful's Backstage Report audio show to reveal that WWE have passed on his services multiple times in the past, and Sean would say, WWE has had the opportunity to sign Lance Anoa'i a number of times. I'm not sure necessarily if there's a ton of interest there. I'm not sure, but I can say that WWE has had the opportunity to sign him a bunch of times. He had a tryout there, he worked for Noah throughout this year. He worked for WWE 3 times over the last 5 years. I know he worked SmackDown with Rhett Titus, he worked NXT against Authors of Pain, then he worked Shane McMahon and Roman Reigns. He was involved in that segment as well. He's not a stranger to WWE. He's been on their radar for a decade. Whilst WWE have refused to take on Lance in the past, his further development in MLW could be enough to persuade them to give him another shot, although their previous rejections could be telling. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 shocking Roman Reigns facts that WWE wants you to forget.